A Tesla left parked on a quiet street became the center of a heartbreaking discovery. Inside, authorities found Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a teenager who had been missing for more than a year. The exact circumstances surrounding her passing have not been confirmed, but official reports and accounts from those close to her suggest that this case is far more complex than it first appeared. It raises questions about her personal life, her final days, and the silence that followed. What remains uncertain is whether anyone will be held responsible for what happened to Celeste. The first public document in her case, her death certificate, offers an initial look at what investigators understand and what they are still trying to uncover about her final moments. According to the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office, both the cause and manner of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's passing are listed as deferred. This means that although the autopsy has been completed, the examiner has not yet made a final conclusion about what led to her death or how it should be classified, whether natural, accidental, self-inflicted, or involving another party. The deferred status is often used when laboratory testing, such as toxicology reports, is still pending. In this case, those results could play a key role in understanding what substances, if any, were present in her system and whether they might explain her sudden collapse. One significant note on the certificate states that Celeste was not pregnant in the year prior to her passing. This clarification immediately dismisses one of the online rumors that had circulated about her disappearance and her reported connection with David, a rising musician she was last known to spend time with. For months, online discussions had speculated about that possibility, but the medical examiner's documentation makes it clear that such claims are unfounded. The certificate also confirms that Celeste's remains were formally released to her family on September 23, 2025. This release usually occurs once the medical examiner has completed both external and internal examinations, gathered all essential evidence, and preserved samples for laboratory testing. At that point, the family can begin making funeral arrangements, even though the toxicology results may still take several weeks to finalize. One of the most notable details in the medical report is the recorded weight at the time of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's passing. She was estimated to weigh around 70 pounds, compared to her previously healthy weight of approximately 120 pounds. This significant decrease, combined with the advanced state of decomposition described in the report, suggests that she had likely passed away several weeks before her body was found. Investigators believe her death most likely occurred in late July or early August of 2025. The condition of her remains, including tissue breakdown, matches a timeline consistent with exposure to high summer temperatures inside a vehicle. In summary, while the death certificate does not yet explain the exact cause of Celeste's passing, it provides several key points. There was no pregnancy. The cause and manner of death remain deferred, the estimated timeline points to midsummer, and the autopsy process has been completed. As toxicology testing continues, these facts serve as the foundation for the broader investigation that is still ongoing. The classification of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's cause and manner of death as deferred also carries important legal implications. In simple terms, it means there is currently no confirmed finding of foul play. Without that determination, prosecutors cannot move forward with serious criminal charges. At this stage, the only possible legal issue directly related to her discovery is the act of failing to report a death, which under California law is considered a misdemeanor. Under state law, this type of violation carries financial penalties that typically range from $100 to $10,000, and it can also result in probation or a short period of detention. While this may seem minor compared to the seriousness of the case, the law only addresses the act of concealing or failing to report a death, not the underlying cause. If future toxicology tests reveal evidence of poisoning, overdose, or any indication of foul play, the legal outlook could change dramatically. For now, however, the concealment charge remains the only clear path available to investigators. History highlights how crucial the distinction between concealment and homicide can be. A well-known comparison is the Tylenol case of 1982, in which several people lost their lives after taking capsules that had been tampered with. Despite the clear link to product manipulation, the individual responsible was never identified, and no homicide conviction was made. Authorities instead pursued related charges, such as obstruction and fraud. Without an official determination of homicide, prosecution for the actual deaths could not move forward. Celeste Rivas Hernandez's case is different in its details but similar in principle. If medical examiners cannot classify her death as a homicide, the law limits how far accountability can extend. This is where toxicology becomes essential. When a body has undergone significant decomposition, it is often difficult to determine a cause of death based solely on physical examination. In such cases, forensic specialists rely on preserved fluids such as vitreous humor from the eye, which tends to remain less affected by decomposition and can be analyzed for substances like fentanyl or other compounds that might provide insight into the cause of death. Some laboratories even use special screening methods that rely on HCG-based testing to detect traces of fentanyl in degraded samples. If toxicology confirms the presence of a harmful substance, prosecutors could reconsider the possibility of criminal involvement, since an accidental overdose, self-inflicted harm, or deliberate poisoning each carries different legal interpretations. As of late September, official updates confirm that the cause of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's passing remains undetermined and that her body has already been released to her family. This confirms that the autopsy process is complete, but any further conclusions depend entirely on the pending toxicology results. Until those results are finalized, the case remains in legal uncertainty. In summary, the deferred classification means that no one can currently be held criminally responsible for Celeste's death. The concealment charge may apply, but it is considered a relatively minor offense compared to a homicide case. Only the toxicology findings have the potential to shift this case from a matter of concealment to one involving possible criminal responsibility. For now, investigators and prosecutors continue to wait for the scientific evidence that could provide the missing answers. A new perspective has emerged from someone who once dated Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Her former boyfriend described her as struggling with a difficult home life and feeling deeply unhappy long before she went missing. According to him, Celeste often talked about wanting to leave permanently and escape a situation she felt was beyond her control. This adds a painful dimension to the story, suggesting that her disappearance may not have been entirely connected to abduction or outside harm, but possibly related to her wish to distance herself from a challenging environment. His account also introduces alternative possibilities regarding her passing. If Celeste was in an unstable or distressed state of mind, it raises the chance that her death might have been linked to an accidental overdose, or a tragic act of self-harm rather than a criminal act by another person. Investigators continue to wait for the toxicology results, as the potential detection of substances such as fentanyl or similar compounds could support this line of inquiry. This would not change the disturbing fact that her body was found concealed in a vehicle, but it could influence how responsibility is viewed. From both legal and investigative perspectives, this testimony adds complexity to the case. If her death was accidental or self-inflicted, criminal liability for homicide would become less likely, shifting attention instead to who concealed her body and why. Concealment remains a crime, but it carries far lighter consequences than homicide. While her ex-boyfriend's statements do not provide definitive answers, they shed light on how Celeste's personal struggles might play an important role in understanding what happened. Her unhappiness and repeated attempts to run away offer context that investigators cannot overlook as they work to separate fact from speculation in a case still surrounded by uncertainty. On September 29, 2025, a memorial was held in Celeste Rivas Hernandez's honor. Friends, relatives, and neighbors came together to honor Celeste Rivas Hernandez, lighting candles and sharing memories of her brief but meaningful life. The atmosphere was quiet yet heavy with emotion, as everyone tried to make sense of a loss that continues to bring more questions than answers. For her family, the vigil was not only a moment to grieve but also a call for truth about what truly happened to Celeste. The gathering also showed how deeply this case has affected the wider community. Many people who had never met Celeste attended to show their support, holding candles and signs calling for justice and transparency. Several attendees voiced frustration that, Weeks after her body was discovered, there is still no confirmed cause of death, and no arrests have been made. This uncertainty leaves her loved ones carrying both the sorrow of loss and the burden of unanswered questions. The emotional response from the public reflects a broader concern shared across the country about how such cases are handled and the need for clear answers. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, thousands of minors run away from home each year, and many come from unstable or challenging family situations. Cases like Celeste Rivas Hernandez highlight how vulnerable runaway teens can be to harm, whether through neglect, dangerous influences, or exploitation. The statistics make it clear that what happened to her is not an isolated tragedy but part of a broader issue that affects families and communities across the nation. In the days following the vigil, public discussion continued about whether anyone might eventually face charges related to Celeste's death. Speculation remains, but until toxicology results are released, the case remains unresolved. For now, the vigil serves as a symbol of grief for those who loved her and a call for clarity that has yet to come. One of the most significant updates in the investigation involves the discovery of surveillance footage recorded on September 8, 2024. The video, captured by a security camera outside her parents' home in Lake Elsinore, shows Celeste engaged in a heated argument with neighbors. Reports indicate the conflict may have started as a prank but quickly escalated. Voices were raised on both sides, and the exchange became tense. Celeste appeared visibly upset and responded emotionally. What makes this footage so important is its timing. Until this discovery, it was widely believed that Celeste had disappeared in April 2024 and had not been seen by her family since then. However, this video proves she was still alive and present at home 4 months later, in September 2024. That single detail completely changes the known timeline of her final months and opens new questions about what happened afterward. The footage was recorded just 1 day after Celeste Rivas Hernandez's 14th birthday, and exactly 1 year before her body would later be found in the Tesla. This new detail changes the entire timeline that investigators had previously believed. The video also provides valuable insight into her family dynamics. According to reports, after the argument, a neighbor's boyfriend went to Celeste's father to apologize. What stands out most is that her father appeared calm and not particularly alarmed, even though the video showed his daughter in a heated and emotional exchange. This reaction raises questions about whether her parents fully understood how deeply Celeste was struggling at that time. The discovery has significant implications for the investigation. It confirms that Celeste was at home months after she was thought to have gone missing, challenging earlier assumptions that she disappeared in April. It also complicates the picture of whether she was living away from home or still returning occasionally. Investigators must now consider the possibility that Celeste's disappearance was not a single moment, but part of an ongoing pattern of leaving and returning, likely tied to the difficulties she faced in her home life. The fact that this footage only came to light after her body was discovered a year later reveals major gaps in the search efforts. If the video had been found earlier, investigators might have focused more attention on her home and nearby surroundings instead of looking solely for outside threats. This emphasizes how even small pieces of evidence can completely change the understanding of a missing person's timeline. Beyond its investigative value, the footage carries a powerful emotional impact. Seeing Celeste alive, expressive, and clearly distressed just a year before her death reminds both the public and investigators that she was a young teenager facing emotional conflict, pressure, and uncertainty. That context may become crucial in understanding whether her death resulted from an accident, the actions of others, or personal circumstances beyond her control. For many observers, the Nest camera recording is not just another piece of evidence. It reshapes the entire timeline of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's disappearance, raises new questions about how much her family understood her struggles, and reveals a far more complex picture of her final year. The fact that the footage was taken around her birthday and exactly 1 year before her body was found makes it an unsettling but essential point in this ongoing case. Another part of the timeline comes from a liquor store's surveillance footage dated March 19, 2024. This video captured Celeste just one day after she was officially reported missing. It holds particular importance because it appears to show the moments leading up to what is believed to be her second disappearance from home. In the footage, Celeste is first seen walking, then suddenly running towards something or someone off camera. The store owner later told investigators that he believed she entered a vehicle waiting nearby. However, the car itself is not clearly visible, and the license plate cannot be seen. Despite that, the video carries major significance. First, it confirms the exact date, time, and place where Celeste was last seen right after she went missing, giving investigators a clear reference point for tracking her movements. Second, it opens crucial questions about who she might have been meeting that day and for what reason. A retired detective who reviewed the footage suggested that while the content of her messages from that time may no longer exist, investigators could still trace phone records or message data showing who she was in contact with. That information could lead directly to the person who was driving the car seen in the footage. When examined frame by frame, the video becomes even more telling. Celeste first appears calm, walking past the store as though waiting for someone. Moments later, she suddenly starts running and disappears from view. Just before she leaves the frame, a parked car can be seen at the edge of the video. Almost immediately after Celeste leaves the camera frame, a car drives away. This detail led both investigators and the liquor store owner to believe she might have entered that vehicle. The car's make, model, and license plate remain unidentified. The private investigator working on the case suggested that this liquor store video might not be the only recording available. Nearby shops could have had cameras with wider views, and city surveillance might have captured the same vehicle leaving the area. In addition, Celeste's phone activity around that time could show who she was planning to meet. Together, these pieces of evidence could help confirm who was driving the car and what truly happened that day. The footage indicates that Celeste's disappearance was not simply a matter of her walking away and vanishing. She appeared active, purposeful, and likely met with someone. This makes the March 19th video a vital clue. It not only documents her second known attempt to leave home, but also suggests that she may have received help from someone outside her family. For investigators, this video serves as a reminder of how one recording can capture a key turning point. For the public, it remains a haunting image of a young girl taking determined steps toward an uncertain future, steps that would later be connected to the discovery of her passing more than a year afterward. Celeste Rivas Hernandez's earlier history of leaving home adds context to her case. Investigators and family members confirmed that she had done so more than once, each time raising deep concern about her safety and the people around her. The first major incident occurred in January 2024, when Celeste, only 13 at the time, was reported missing and later located in Hollywood. Authorities brought her home safely, but the event revealed early signs of distress in her life. According to official sources, Celeste's home environment was complicated, which may have contributed to her repeated attempts to leave. Around the same period, a controversy arose involving a man named David and his manager, Josh Marshall. A private investigator stated that in early 2024, certain adults in Celeste's circle sent an email to Marshall claiming that she had run away and was possibly with David. The manager later denied receiving such a message, though records confirmed that it was sent. Interestingly, Celeste returned home the following day, and some believe that event might be related to that communication. Whether or not the email directly influenced her return, the timing remains striking. By March 2024, another incident took place. Surveillance footage from a liquor store in Lake Elsinore showed Celeste walking and then suddenly running toward a car that could not be clearly identified. This was likely her second disappearance, again suggesting that she might not have acted alone but may have had guidance or assistance from others. The most revealing update came later from Celeste's former boyfriend. He described her as feeling unhappy and weighed down by what he called a difficult home environment. According to him, Celeste often talked about wanting to leave for good. His account supports the idea that her disappearances were not just impulsive decisions, but part of a deeper effort to escape circumstances she found overwhelming. For investigators, this information is essential. It shows that Celeste was in a vulnerable situation and had a repeated pattern of leaving home, which makes it difficult to distinguish between personal decisions and possible outside influence. Each time she left, there was a chance that someone could have taken advantage of her or placed her in unsafe situations. Reports suggesting that she once used false identification and managed to reach places far beyond the access of someone her age imply that she likely had adult assistance. These earlier events also shaped how her passing has been interpreted. Because Celeste had a history of running away, it became easier for her 2024 disappearance to be misunderstood or not treated as immediately alarming. Her repeated attempts to leave home may explain why some officials initially considered the possibility of an accident or self-harm, rather than assuming the involvement of another person. Ultimately, Celeste's story reflects the struggles of a young girl caught between a troubled home life and dangerous outside influences. It complicates the search for clear answers but also underscores how early care and intervention might have changed her path. Her experience serves as a reminder that patterns of running away should never be ignored. They can signal deeper emotional pain and vulnerability. When piecing together Celeste Rivas Hernandez's movements from March 2024 to August 2025, investigators have begun to see a clearer picture. Each stage, her disappearances, returns, and the tragic end of her story, adds to a complex timeline that authorities are still working to fully understand. From March 2024 to August 2025, the timeline shows a repeated pattern of leaving home, brief returns, and unexplained absences. Rather than a single disappearance, Celeste Rivas Hernandez's story appears to be a series of breaks from home that ended tragically. Understanding these patterns is vital not only for uncovering what happened but also for recognizing the vulnerability of teenagers caught between unstable homes and uncertain outside influences. One of the most important parts of the case involves the movements of the Tesla where Celeste was later found. The vehicle was registered to David and had been parked only about 150 feet from a house he rented in the Hollywood Hills. Neighbors said the car had remained in the same spot for nearly a month before it was finally towed. The key timeline begins on August 27, 2025, when a parking officer marked the Tesla after noticing it had not been moved for several days. Under Los Angeles parking regulations, any vehicle left in the same public spot for more than 72 hours can be cited. When the Tesla was still there after the deadline, a ticket was issued on September 3, 2025. When no one responded to the citation, the car was officially towed on September 5 and taken to an impound facility. Workers later noticed a strong odor coming from the trunk area, which led authorities to check the vehicle. On September 8, 2025, Celeste was discovered inside. This means the Tesla had been parked on a public street for more than a week after being marked, and likely close to a month in total, without being moved or claimed. The fact that it was left near a property associated with David raised serious questions, suggesting it was abandoned in an area familiar to him. A private investigator who reviewed the initial report noted that the Tesla already had a dent when it was first logged, but there was no mention of any odor at that time. This could mean the changes to the car's condition developed in the days following the first citation. The Tesla timeline also aligns with the estimated period of Celeste's passing in late July or early August, based on official reports. If that timing is correct, it is possible that her body was placed in the Tesla soon afterward, and the car remained in the same location through the end of summer. For investigators, this sequence provides a crucial framework: when her body was likely moved, how long it remained undiscovered, and who might have had access to the area during that time. One key question remains: why was the Tesla left untouched for so long? The vehicle sat in a residential neighborhood near a property linked to David, yet no one came to claim it even after it was sighted. That silence turned the car into both a potential crime scene and a timeline marker, one that could eventually reveal who was responsible for leaving Celeste inside. Authorities have also been examining whether the Tesla's onboard camera system might contain useful evidence. Modern Teslas have built-in cameras and a dashcam feature that records nearby activity. Police sources confirmed that requests have been made to recover any possible recordings, as such footage could help determine when and how Celeste's body was placed in the vehicle. When the car was first marked by parking enforcement in late August, the report mentioned the dent but did not reference any noticeable odor, suggesting the critical changes occurred later. By the time the Tesla was towed on September 5th, there were still no official reports of any unusual odor. Only 3 days later, on September 8th, workers at the impound facility noticed a strong smell, which led officers to open the trunk and find Celeste. This sequence reveals an important clue about timing and decomposition. If the body had been inside the vehicle for several weeks, the sealed trunk may have slowed the release of odor until the car was moved and exposed to different environmental conditions. That could explain why no one reported any smell on August 27th or September 3rd, but it became noticeable by September 8th. The Tesla's camera system raises another key question. If the dashcam or sentry mode was active, it might have captured when someone placed Celeste's body inside or at least recorded activity near the vehicle. Even a brief clip showing people around the car could provide important leads. Investigators have reportedly explored this possibility, though it remains unclear whether any usable footage has been recovered. If video evidence exists, it could help determine the exact date and potentially identify whoever left the car near David's rented home. From a broader perspective, these small details can shift the entire direction of the case. A dent mentioned in an early report shows that the Tesla was already damaged, yet no odor was documented until days later. This difference helps narrow down when decomposition became noticeable, and whether the placement of the body occurred closer to the end of August rather than weeks earlier. In essence, the Tesla is more than a location, it is evidence. Between the camera recordings, the timeline of the odor, and the vehicle's condition, investigators view it as a silent witness to what happened to Celeste. If video evidence is found, it could finally answer when and how her body was left in the car and by whom. Until then, the dent, the delayed odor, and the unexplained abandonment remain key parts of a mystery still unfolding. Beyond being a physical scene, the Tesla also plays a central role in the legal aspect of the case. Under California law, concealing a death, meaning leaving or failing to report a deceased person, is considered a criminal act. This can result in penalties such as fines, probation, or short jail sentences, even if homicide is not proven. While less severe than a murder charge, it still establishes accountability for whoever placed Celeste inside the car. The timeline strengthens this claim. The Tesla was parked for weeks, marked, ticketed, and towed, yet no one came forward. This silence, along with the vehicle's connection to David, suggests avoidance rather than ignorance. Even without a homicide charge, prosecutors could argue that someone intentionally abandoned the vehicle with Celeste inside, meeting the criteria for concealment. Similar patterns have been seen in other investigations where abandoned vehicles link suspects to victims, serving both as transport and disposal sites. For Celeste's case, the Tesla remains a cornerstone of the investigation. If homicide cannot be confirmed, concealment is the minimum legal violation. However, if toxicology results later reveal a controlled substance and prosecutors determine it was administered to her, the car would become part of a broader homicide case. Until then, it stands as clear evidence that her death was hidden and not reported. Another crucial question concerns whether David could have physically participated in placing Celeste's body in the Tesla. His tour schedule may hold answers. Records show that he began a preview event in San Francisco around July 26, 2025, with the official tour launching on August 4, 2025. Once the tour began, it would have been extremely difficult for David to return to Los Angeles without being noticed. Because of that, some believe he has a solid alibi for the time when Celeste Rivas Hernandez likely died and when the Tesla was abandoned. Still, the fact that the car was parked close to a house he had rented in the Hollywood Hills keeps his name linked to the case. This connection raises the possibility that someone close to him could have placed Celeste's body in the vehicle while he was away. The Tesla was first marked on August 27, ticketed on September 3, and towed on September 5, meaning it remained in public view for days without anyone moving it. This leaves open the question of whether the body was placed there shortly before the car was left or earlier, while David was still in Los Angeles. Police have publicly confirmed only that Celeste died and her body was placed in the Tesla, but they have not identified who was responsible, or whether anyone will face charges beyond concealment. The investigation remains open, with detectives continuing to analyze electronic data and other forms of evidence. Opinions remain divided. Some believe David's tour schedule clears him, while others think the connection between his car, his rented home, and Celeste cannot be ignored. Until toxicology results and additional evidence are released, the gap between alibi and suspicion leaves the case unresolved. When the Los Angeles Police Department addressed the public, Captain Scott Williams offered the clearest statement so far. He confirmed that Celeste had been deceased for several weeks before she was discovered in the Tesla. According to Captain Williams, investigators are certain that someone placed her in the front trunk of the car, but the exact cause of death has not yet been determined. Without that finding, he explained, no one can currently be held criminally responsible beyond the act of concealment. Captain Williams emphasized that concealment is not a minor issue. It carries legal consequences, meaning that even if no homicide charges are ever filed, the person who hid Celeste's body can still be prosecuted for failing to report a death. In California, such an act is a misdemeanor that can lead to fines, probation, or short jail sentences. While this may not satisfy the public's demand for justice, it at least acknowledges that a crime occurred. At the same time, Captain Williams noted that detectives continue to examine the relationship between Celeste and David. Since the Tesla was registered to him and parked near a home he rented, he remains a central figure in the investigation, even if he has not been named a suspect. Williams avoided direct accusations but confirmed that investigators are gathering digital records, including communications and location data, to better understand the link between the two. His statement also highlighted the limits of the current evidence. Without toxicology results or direct proof of foul play, homicide charges cannot be filed, no matter how suspicious the circumstances appear. This cautious approach reflects the reality that the case now depends heavily on forensic science. Toxicology must provide answers that the autopsy could not. If substances such as fentanyl are detected and prosecutors determine they were administered to her, the case could evolve into a homicide or manslaughter investigation. If the results are inconclusive, concealment may remain the only charge possible. In summary, Captain Williams described the case as both tragic and incomplete. Celeste had been gone for weeks before she was found. Someone took deliberate steps to hide her, and that act alone has legal consequences. But whether her death will ever lead to homicide charges depends entirely on what science can prove and what investigators can uncover about her final weeks, the Tesla, and the people around her. The case was quickly assigned to the Los Angeles Police Department's Robbery Homicide Division, which handles the city's most complex investigations. Detectives obtained a search warrant on September 17, 2025, targeting a Hollywood Hills property that David had previously rented. According to law enforcement sources, officers collected several items during the search, including computers and other electronic devices. These materials are now being examined for communications, location data, or digital evidence that could clarify Celeste's final movements. Investigators also search for physical traces, such as hair or biological material, though no public results have been released so far. The goal of the search was to either strengthen or weaken the possible link between Celeste's death and the property associated with David, who had moved out earlier that summer. At this stage, laboratory testing and toxicology results are still pending. Until those findings are complete, detectives have limited ability to move forward with homicide-related charges. The Robbery Homicide Division continues to lead the case, treating the Tesla, the electronic data, and all forensic evidence as vital to uncovering what happened in the final days of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's life. From the beginning, David's name has been connected to Celeste Rivas Hernandez because the Tesla where she was found was registered in his name and parked near a home he had rented. Despite this link, police have not identified him as a suspect. Officials have emphasized that the investigation is still active, and at this stage, the only confirmed offense is the concealment of her body. Early statements from David's team said he was cooperating fully with investigators, but weeks later, police would not confirm whether that was still the case. This shift, along with David's public silence, has raised questions about his current level of involvement. He has postponed professional commitments, but made no personal comments about the matter. Detectives continue to view his connection as significant but not yet conclusive. The fact that Celeste was found in his car near his former rental ensures he remains under scrutiny, though no formal charges have been announced. The Los Angeles Police Department has stated that the investigation continues while they await toxicology and digital evidence to clarify what truly happened. By late September and early October 2025, the case was still officially categorized as an ongoing death investigation, leaving the public waiting for clear answers about what occurred and who may ultimately be held responsible. Although the cause of death had not been determined, detectives confirmed that the case remained open and active. They continued reviewing forensic findings, electronic data, and the timeline showing how Celeste Rivas Hernandez ended up in the Tesla. The key question was whether toxicology would reveal conclusive results that might shift the case from concealment to potential homicide charges. These updates came a day after a memorial for Celeste was held on September 29, where family members, neighbors, and supporters gathered to honor her and call for answers. The emotional atmosphere of that vigil highlighted the community's frustration over the slow pace of progress and the lack of identified suspects. Investigators stated they were also analyzing video footage from several sources as part of the timeline review. Though details were not made public, they confirmed that material collected in late September could become significant in the broader investigation. Even without final toxicology results, police continued to build a clearer picture of when and how her body was placed in the car. By the end of September and the start of October, the case remained in a holding pattern, the investigation active, the family grieving, and the community waiting for answers. The situation also had an immediate effect on David's career. His tour, which was set to begin with shows in San Francisco and Los Angeles in late September 2025, was abruptly postponed as the investigation deepened. A European leg of David's tour was also planned to begin soon after the US shows, but all dates were suddenly cancelled. The timing was critical for his career, as he had been preparing to promote his upcoming album with performances meant to highlight new music and expand his international audience. The cancellations went beyond logistics. They reflected the reality that the ongoing investigation made it impossible for him to continue performing publicly. Around the same time, his label, Intercope, reportedly paused all promotional activities, leaving his new projects uncertain. Sources close to the matter confirmed that these decisions were directly tied to the investigation surrounding Celeste Rivas Hernandez. With search warrants executed and detectives examining his connection to the Tesla, continuing the tour risked further public scrutiny. For fans, the sudden halt marked a turning point. Until then, David's career had seemed separate from the tragedy, but the pause in touring and promotion showed how deeply the situation had begun to affect his professional life. Adding to the timeline, David's last visible online activity came on September 7, 2025, just days before Celeste was found. On that day, he posted about his upcoming album Wither Deluxe Morescence, which was scheduled for release on September 19. After that, his accounts went completely silent. For an artist known for frequent engagement with fans, the abrupt stop quickly drew attention once the investigation became public. What makes this period even more unusual is that while David stopped posting publicly, his online following actually grew. By mid-September, reports showed he had gained tens of thousands of new followers on both Spotify and Instagram within a short time. The surge suggested that public attention surrounding the investigation and his name's connection to the case had fueled curiosity rather than silence. This created a striking contrast as David avoided any public comment about Celeste Rivas Hernandez or the investigation, yet his social media presence expanded rapidly, driven not by new music but by the ongoing situation. His continued silence since September 7th raised questions about his legal strategy and whether he was being advised to stay quiet. The impact of the case extended beyond music. Shortly after Celeste was found in his Tesla, two major brands, Crocs and Hollister, quietly removed his promotional images from their campaigns. These collaborations had been key to his youthful image and mainstream appeal, and their withdrawal showed that companies were choosing to distance themselves while the investigation continued. On September 24, 2025, moving trucks were seen outside the Hollywood Hills home he had been renting, with boxes being carried out just days after police executed a search warrant at the property. Although no reason was given, the timing suggested that David or his team decided to end the lease amid growing scrutiny. Altogether, these events painted a picture of a young artist whose professional world had been disrupted. Music releases stopped, tours were cancelled, partnerships withdrawn, and personal plans changed dramatically. The ripple effects of the investigation reached far beyond his career, affecting both his finances and his public image. As speculation spread, David's manager Josh Marshall became the subject of rumors after reports claimed a red Tesla connected to his management team had been seen leaving the Hollywood Hills area. In response, Marshall publicly denied any connection. He stated that he had no knowledge of Celeste's death, did not live in California, and worked remotely most of the time. He emphasized that he was not involved in David's daily management, and clarified that the red car mentioned in reports was not his. Marshall continued to insist that no such email had ever reached him, and without proof of delivery or acknowledgement, the truth remains unclear. The disagreement shows how quickly narratives can split in a high-profile case, where even a single message can carry great weight. For Marshall, denying the email was a way to defend his credibility. For the investigator, standing by its existence pointed to the idea that an earlier warning might have been missed. As of now, the email remains an unresolved detail in the case. Marshall's comments on TikTok drew widespread attention, prompting a journalist from Ella magazine to contact him directly for verification. In the interview, Marshall confirmed the account was his and repeated that he had no involvement in Celeste Rivas Hernandez's disappearance or death. He explained that he did not live in California and worked remotely most of the time. The journalist verified the authenticity of his messages before publication. Marshall said little beyond his earlier statements, but emphasized that he had no knowledge of the situation and that his role in David's career was limited. His choice to respond publicly in a comment rather than through a formal statement surprised many, showing his urgency to counter false rumors. In later remarks, he spoke about how the case had affected his family, sharing that he was a father of 3 and that the ongoing speculation had deeply unsettled his wife and children. The case now focuses less on blaming one person and more on whether the system failed to protect Celeste. Legal analyst Matt Irvine noted that one of the strongest points supporting David is his verified tour schedule. Records show that by late July and early August 2025, when Celeste is believed to have died, David was already in San Francisco preparing for shows and later began a full tour across the country. Irvine explained that once the tour started, it would have been very difficult for him to return to Los Angeles without being noticed. Every part of the tour, including flights, hotels, and staff, leaves detailed records that act as a timeline. Still, Irvine said that no alibi is completely secure because travel and technology can create small gaps of opportunity. That is why video evidence has become crucial. Investigators are reviewing footage from public cameras and from the Tesla system to see if anyone can be seen approaching or leaving the vehicle. The key is whether the time the car was left matches David's documented movements. If not, questions will remain no matter how strong the alibi seems. Retired prosecutor William Corman pointed out that David's silence is expected. In sensitive cases, lawyers often advise clients to speak very little to avoid inconsistencies. David's cooperation during the searches of his car and property was viewed positively because it showed a willingness to cooperate while respecting legal rights. Corman added that the investigation is still waiting for toxicology results before any charges can be considered. Until those results are available, the cause of death cannot be confirmed. Private investigator Steve Fisher said that Celeste's history of running away and her family difficulties made her more vulnerable to manipulation. He believes toxicology is the key because the body's condition prevented clear autopsy findings. Tests for substances such as fentanyl may provide the only certain answers. If a controlled substance is found at harmful levels, investigators will examine how Celeste obtained it and whether it was given to her on purpose. Fisher emphasized that the toxicology results will decide the direction of the case. If positive, the focus could shift toward deliberate harm. If negative, progress may slow. Police sources confirmed that they are analyzing possible footage from the Tesla cameras. Even a short clip showing movement near the vehicle could help establish timing and identify who was present. Investigators believe that combining digital evidence, toxicology, and the Tesla's data will eventually bring a clearer understanding of what happened to Celeste. For now, officials remain cautious. The cause of Celeste's death is still undetermined, the homicide investigation remains open, and concealment is the only confirmed offense. Until more evidence is made public, the case remains uncertain, with possible video files from the Tesla seen as one of the most promising leads. From the beginning, Celeste's story has been shaped as much by speculation and public reaction as by confirmed facts. When her body was discovered in David's Tesla, questions about their connection quickly surfaced. Friends recalled that Celeste often mentioned being close to someone she believed was 19. Although that age difference may seem small, the fact that she was underage gave it serious weight. Reports of a shared tattoo with the letters H deepened suspicion, especially since it was later used to help identify her. Appearances on casual live streams added to the perception that she was involved with David in a way many found troubling. Her former boyfriend described her as struggling at home and often talking about wanting to leave for good, giving context to her actions. Celeste may have been searching for freedom, but the people she turned to might not have been the safest choices. This uncertainty fueled a wave of theories. Some claimed the Tesla had been deliberately left near David's rental home to frame him, noting that the car stayed in the same spot for weeks, even after receiving parking tickets. Others pushed more speculative ideas, drawing connections to his song lyrics or symbols. None of these claims have been proven, but they reveal how quickly rumors can grow when official answers are slow to arrive. In the silence left by the investigation, speculation filled the space. The emotional response from the community was immediate and heartfelt. On September 29th, a vigil brought family, friends, and strangers together to honor Celeste's life. People lit candles, shared memories, and called for justice. In the following days, her story grew beyond one case. Advocates reminded others that thousands of children run away each year, many facing risks such as exploitation, substance exposure, or unsafe relationships. Celeste's life became a symbol of how vulnerable teens can slip through the cracks. By the end of September, the investigation stood at a crossroads. The autopsy found no clear cause, leaving both cause and manner of death undetermined. Toxicology tests were still pending, and until results arrived, homicide charges could not be filed. The only confirmed crime was concealment of a body, a lesser offense under state law. Police searched a Hollywood Hills property linked to David and seized electronics, but did not name him as a suspect. His manager, Josh Marshall, denied all involvement, rejecting rumors about a red car and an old email. Experts explained that if toxicology reveals a lethal substance, prosecutors could pursue a homicide or manslaughter charge. If results are inconclusive, only concealment can be prosecuted. The public remains divided. Some see David's connection as suspicious, while others cite his tour schedule as a strong alibi. Beyond legal questions, Celeste's story highlights social failures. Her repeated runaways were treated as isolated incidents rather than signs of distress. Statistics show that many minors face similar risks, and without proper intervention, they often fall into dangerous situations. The case also exposes weaknesses in the entertainment industry, where boundaries between young fans and performers can blur without strong oversight. Whether misconduct occurred remains unproven, But the circumstances underscore the need for stricter protections. Managers and agents are expected to safeguard both careers and people around them. When oversight fails, consequences can be devastating. Celeste's case also shows how fragile evidence can be. Decomposition limited autopsy findings, leaving science as the only path to clarity. At its heart, this story is about loss, accountability, and change. A young girl searching for safety, a family left grieving, and a community demanding truth. Justice for Celeste means more than a legal outcome. It means fixing the systems that ignored her warnings, protecting others before tragedy repeats. She was a child who still found joy in small things, who tried to belong in a world that never made room for her. Her name now echoes through protests, candles, and every voice that refuses to forget. Justice for Celeste begins with awareness, compassion, and the determination to ensure that no one like her is left unheard again.